do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
Your mother was pregnant with you when the stock market crashed. So you were born into a very hard world. Where and how did your father earn his living?
He was a working class guy. When we were down here in Pacific Palisades, he worked at the Standard Station on the Pacific Coast Highway and Sunset Boulevard. We traveled all the way from Sacramento to Pacific Palisades to get a job as a gas station attendant. That's how few and far between the jobs were at that particular time in history.
Was he an important influence on you?
Well, yeah, he was the only guy I knew at that time. We were kind of a family that moved around a lot. We didn't know too many people. He was my first male influence. I have a sister and my mother and father and myself. We just kind of moved around. We just kind of stayed very close.
Didn't your father once say to you, you either progress or you decay?
Yeah, he did say that. He always felt that one must constantly be absorbing life and be educating oneself in life, and that if you didn't, you just stood pat or slid back.
Can you remember the first movie that you ever saw?
I remember my dad taking me to see Sergeant York when that first came out. This was, of course, before television, and you only had radio. And a movie was a tremendous treat for a family.
Did you listen to the radio?
Yeah.
What programs did you listen to?
All of the I Love a Mystery and the Green Hornet and the Shadow.
Your mother has said that your toys were the kind that talked and did things other children didn't do. Were you a solitary child?
I'd rather not talk about that.
Thank you to remember this is a course in a university. We keep it very
that's
clean.
Right. It's just a psychiatric course. We didn't have a lot of toys, so you sort of made up the toys, you made up the games.
Would you describe yourself as a shy child? Were you a shy child?
Yeah, I think I was, yeah. We moved so much, and I think going to different schools, I was a little bit tall for my age, and so we were changing schools all the time. I was always having to defend myself.
Clint Eastwood was born May 31, 1930 in San Francisco, the son of Clinton Eastwood Sr., a bond salesman and later manufacturing executive for Georgia Pacific Corporation, and Ruth Wood, a housewife turned IBM operator. He had a comfortable, middle-class upbringing in nearby Piedmont. At school, Clint took interest in music and mechanics, but was an otherwise bored student. This resulted in being held back a grade. When Eastwood was 19, his parents relocated to Washington State, and young Clint spent a couple years working menial jobs in the Pacific Northwest. Returning to California in 1951, he did a stint at Fort Ord Military Reservation and later enrolled at Los Angeles City College, but dropped out after 2 semesters to pursue acting. During the mid-50s, he landed uncredited bit parts in such B films as Revenge of the Creature and Tarantula while digging swimming pools and driving a garbage truck to supplement his income. In 1958, he landed his first consequential acting role in the long-running TV show Rawhide with Eric Fleming. Though only a secondary player for the first 7 seasons, Clint was promoted to series star when Fleming departed both literally and figuratively in its final year, along the way becoming a recognizable face to television viewers around the country.
Oh, shit. Take it easy. Take it easy. What the hell are you doing? Have you lost your mind?
Eastwood's big screen breakthrough came as the man with no name in Sergio Leone's trilogy of excellent spaghetti westerns, A Fistful of Dollars, 1964, For a Few Dollars More, 1965, and The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, 1966. The movies were shown exclusively in Italy during their respective copyright years, with Enrico Maria Salerno providing the voice for Clint's character, finally getting American distribution in 1967-68. As the last film racked up phenomenal grosses, Eastwood, 37, rose from television nonentity to sought-after box office attraction in just a matter of months. Yet again a success was the late blooming star's first U.S.-made Western, Hang 'em High, 1968. He followed that up with the lead role in Coogan's Bluff, 1968, the loose inspiration for the TV series McCloud, 1970, before playing second fiddle to Richard Burton in the World War II epic Where Eagles Dare, 1968, and Lee Marvin in the bizarre musical Paint Your Wagon, 1969. In Two Mules for Sister Sarah, 1970, and Kelly's Heroes, 1970, Eastwood leaned in an experimental direction by combining tough guy action with offbeat humor.
Just turn around and go.
one of the fundamental principles of the Western that was demolished by this trilogy was the pure black and white structure of the good guy and the bad guy. Your character was, I think, the first movie character, really, who didn't wait for the other guy to draw his gun.
Yeah.
You shot first.
Yeah, but it doesn't make sense. Why would you wait for somebody to draw their gun? American Westerns, I never could understand that. And
1971 proved to be his busiest year in film. He starred as a sleazy Union soldier in The Beguiled, 1971, to critical acclaim, and made his directorial debut with the classic erotic thriller play Misty for Me, 1971. His role as the hard-edged police inspector in Dirty Harry, 1971, meanwhile, boosted him to cultural icon status and helped popularize the loose cannon cop genre. Eastwood put out a steady stream of entertaining movies thereafter. The westerns Joe Kidd, 1972, High Plains Drifter, 1973, and The Outlaw Josie Wales, 1976, his first of 6 on-screen collaborations with then live-in love Sandra Locke, the Dirty Harry sequels Magnum Force, 1973, and The Enforcer, 1976, The Road Adventures Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, 1974, and The Gauntlet, 1977, and the fact-based prison film Escape from Alcatraz, 1979. He branched out into the comedy genre in 1978 with Every Which Way But Loose, 1978, which became the biggest hit of his career up to that time. Taking inflation into account, it still is. In short, The Iger Sanction, 1975, notwithstanding, the 70s were non-stop success for Clint. Eastwood kicked off the 80s with Any Which Way You Can, 1980, the blockbuster sequel to Every Which Way But Loose. The fourth Dirty Harry film, Sudden Impact, 1983, was the highest-grossing film of the franchise and spawned his trademark catchphrase, "Make my day." Clint also starred in Bronco Billy, 1980, Firefox, 1982, Tightrope, 1984, City Heat, 1984, Pale Rider, 1985, and Heartbreak Ridge, 1986, all of which were solid hits, with Honky Tonk Man, 1982, being his only commercial failure of the period. In 1988 he did his fifth and final Dirty Harry movie, The Dead Pool, 1988. Although it was a success overall, it did not have the box office punch the previous films had. About this time, with outright bombs like Pink Cadillac, 1989, and The Rookie, 1990, it seemed Eastwood's star was declining as it never had before. He then started taking on low-key projects, directing Bird, 1988, a biopic of Charlie Parker that earned him a Golden Globe, and starring in and directing White Hunter Black Heart, 1990, an uneven, loose biopic of John Huston. Both films had a limited release.
Yeah, well, when an adult male is chasing a female with intent to commit rape, I shoot the bastard. That's my policy.
Eastwood bounced back big time with his dark western Unforgiven, 1992, which garnered the then 62-year-old his first ever Academy Award nomination, Best Actor, and an Oscar win for Best Director. Churning out a quick follow-up hit, he took on the Secret Service in The Line of Fire, 1993, then accepted second billing for the first time since 1970 in the interesting but poorly received A Perfect World, 1993, with Kevin Costner. Next up was A Love Story, The Bridges of Madison County, 1995, where Clint surprised audiences with a sensitive performance alongside none other than Meryl Streep. But it soon became apparent he was going backwards after his brief revival. Subsequent films were credible, but nothing really stuck out. Absolute Power, 1997, and Space Cowboys, 2000, did well enough, while True Crime, 1999, and Bloodwork, 2002, were received badly, as was Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, 1997, which he directed but didn't appear in.
When you hang a man, you better look at him.
Eastwood surprised again in the mid-O, returning to the top of the A-list with $1 Million Baby, 2004. Also starring Hilary Swank and Morgan Freeman, the hugely successful drama won 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director for Clint. He scored his second Best Actor nomination, too. Eastwood's next starring vehicle, Gran Torino, 2008, earned almost $30 million in its opening weekend and was his highest grosser unadjusted for inflation. 2012 saw him in a rare lighthearted movie, Trouble with the Curve, 2012, as well as a reality show, Mrs. Eastwood and Company, 2012. And between acting jobs, Clint chalked up a long and impressive list of credits behind the camera. He directed Mystic River, 2003, in which Sean Penn and Tim Robbins gave Oscar-winning performances, Flags of Our Fathers, 2006, Letters from Iwo Jima, 2006, nominated for the Best Picture Oscar, Changeling, 2008, A Vehicle for Screen megastar Angelina Jolie, Invictus, 2009, again with Freeman, Hereafter, 2010, J. Edgar, 2011, Jersey Boys, 2014, American Sniper, 2014, 2014's top box office champ, Sully, Miracle on the Hudson, 2016, starring Tom Hanks as hero pilot Chesley Sullenberger, and the 1517 to Paris, 2018. Back on screens, he played an unlikely drug courier in The Mule, 2018, which reached the top of the box office with a 9-figure gross, then directed Richard Jewell, 2019. At the age of 91, Eastwood makes history as the oldest actor to star above the title in a movie when Cry Macho, 2021, premieres in 2021. Outside of work, Eastwood has led a hysterically convoluted existence and is described by biographer Patrick McGilligan as a cunning manipulator of the media. His slew of partners and children are now reported somewhat factually, but for the first 3 decades of his celebrity, his personal life was kept top secret, and several of his families were left out of the official narrative. The Hollywood kingpin refuses to disclose his exact number of offspring even to this day. He had a longtime relationship with equally enigmatic co-star Locke, deceased 2018, and has fathered at least 8 children by at least 6 different women in an unending string of liaisons, many of which overlapped.
Jack Green has said, Clint doesn't say action or cut. He says, okay, let's start now. And okay, that'll be enough. Which distinguishes you from nearly every other film director on this planet. Now that has to be a conscious decision on your part. Why do you do it?
It started out in the Westerns. You'd ride in 4 horses. You got a camera here, and you got 4 riders, and they're supposed to all be side by side. That's very difficult to do, to get into a fairly close shot. And then right away, they come out and they zing a boom, a mic boom out there. The horses don't like that, so they're getting edgy on that. And then just when you start, and you got the 4 horses up there, they're going to come riding into shot. Some guy yells at the top of his lung through a megaphone, "Action!" Well, these horses go every which way, and I'm on it. And they're bouncing this way and that way, and when you get them in the scene, they're just backing in and out. The directors are going, cutting, why the hell can't these damn horses do? And you just say, how about just not saying action? How about saying something else? I said, say something, say anything. You know, and so I never could get them to do it. But to just yell action and stop the actors, it came to my attention that actors are not like horses, but they do have a central nervous system.
Known on set as a director for filming very few takes and having an easy shooting schedule. Tim Robbins once said that when working on Mystic River, 2003, Eastwood would usually ask for only 1 take, or 2, if you were lucky, and that a day of filming would consist of starting no earlier than 9 a.m. and you leave, usually, after lunch. He got involved in an illicit relationship with Roxanne Tunis in 1959 during the 2nd season of Rawhide, 1959. Tunis was a regular extra, stuntwoman on the show. Their daughter Kimber Eastwood was born in 1964 as Kimber Tunis. Following Kimber's birth, Eastwood asked Maggie Johnson for a divorce. But within a matter of weeks afterward, Johnson fell very ill with hepatitis and had to be hospitalized. Eastwood and Johnson reconciled, mutually understanding that it would be best if she turned a blind eye to his existing families. He also had a child in 1954 from a different affair, and in 1968, almost 15 years after they married, their first child together was born. Johnson was finally introduced to Tunis in 1972, outside Eastwood's presence, by a crew member on the set of Breezy, 1973. The affair between Eastwood and Tunis is believed to have dissolved in the mid-70s, around the time he and Sandra Locke got together. Tunis later appeared as an extra in Every Which Way But Loose, 1978, as a member of the audience at LA's Palomino Country Western Club where Locke's character sings, but Eastwood didn't tell Locke about Kimber until 1983. She thought it was cruel that he admitted he was Kimber's father but never treated her accordingly. He has always disliked the reading of political and social agendas in his films, which has occurred from Dirty Harry, 1971, to $1 Million Baby, 2004. He has always maintained that all of his films are apolitical and what he has in mind when making a film is whether it's going to be entertaining and compelling. He was named the #1 top money-making star at the box office in Quigley Publications' annual poll of movie exhibitors 5 times between 1972 and 1993. Bing Crosby, Burt Reynolds and Tom Hanks also have been named #1 5 times, while Tom Cruise holds the record for being named #1 6 times.